My grandfather's gun is a Remington Sweet 16. All I can remember was when I was a kid, going back to my friends taking me hunting and me really getting into wanting to be in the outdoors. We would always spend some time and stay at both grandparents' house. My mom's dad, my grandpa Labus, when he was younger, served in the military. He was a Marine. He was one of those guys that, was serious, staunch, but with his grandkids, he would make jokes every once in a while, and he was just, for us, he was fun to be around. When we would visit, in Indiana and most of your Midwest places farther up north, they have basements pretty much in all the houses. And I loved going down their basement because he had all kinds of cool stuff down there. In that basement, the ceiling wasn't super high, and it had kind of rafters in it. So, like a lot of people do when they have stuff like that, there was things that they had that were stuffed up over the top of the studs, over the rafters, that they kept kind of stashed up there and out of the way. The first few times I went down there and I found it, I didn't dare touch it. So finally one day I got the courage up and I reached up there, there was a gun case, and I pulled it down and opened it up. And of course, I didn't know what I was looking at. All I knew was it was a cool looking shotgun. It was one of those back in the day when they had taken over and were building the Humpback, the Sweet 16s, in the absence of another gun manufacturer that was building. I think Browning had to build, history-wise, had to build guns for the military. They took over and started building these Humpback A5 style A-frame, or these Humpback frame shotguns. And I was just infatuated with it, and I was like, man, one of these days, I hope I get to get this gun. I just want him to know that I want it. I tucked it back, but every time I would go down there, I'd go down there every day, take it out and look at it, and I'd ask him, Grandpa, he didn't hunt anymore. I think when he was younger, back in the years before, he hunted. I think he did some bird hunting. That thing was always up there, and I never knew of him going bird hunting anymore. Nobody ever talked about it. Grandma didn't talk about it. None of my aunts or uncles talked about him doing it. So I just thought, it's just sitting up here. Nobody's using it. He just got it. Well, I asked him one day, I was like, Grandpa, why don't you let me have that shotgun? I started hunting, and I'd really like to have it. And he just kind of sipped his coffee and chuckled. And he said, I don't know, we'll see, maybe one day. Every year we'd go up there, I'd ask him. Well into my 20s years, I would ask him. I told him, I was like, I really want that shotgun. Well, come to find out, it was a wedding gift from my grandmother to him. And when I found that out, that made it even more special, but I also realized that was the reason he wouldn't let me have it. When I was a junior in high school, my grandmother had a relapse from cancer, and when we found out, it happened quick. So we got to see her. She knew we were there. She looked at all of us, and the next morning, they called my aunt's house where we were staying at about, I don't even remember what time, it was early, and said we just wanted everybody, she took her last breath and went to rest. Even after that, I would ask him, I was like, Grandpa, I want that, and I think he held on to it because that was a wedding gift from her to him, and I don't think he wanted to let it go. But several years after that, we went up there one year to visit. They called me and said, Chad, you need to come over here and sit down with your grandpa. So I got up and I walked over and sat down next to him, and in his own way, very, almost kind of like shy. For years now, have wanted something that, I just wasn't willing to let go of. And he said, I've decided now that I want you to have that gun. He put his hand on my leg and he said, it's time, I'm ready to let it go. And he said, out of all my grandsons, all my kids and my grandsons, you're the only one that hunts. My heart was pounding. I was nervous, I was excited. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know what to do other than just give him a hug and tell him I loved him. And it was a really special time, a special moment, especially with the rest of the family there. Everybody, seeing it, knowing that I wanted that gun for so long. And and then what it meant. I don't hunt with it. It's one of those ones that I just put up. I'm not a big gun collector. I fancy myself more of a user. That one right there doesn't get used. I want to keep it as pristine as I can for as long as I can. It's definitely got a super special place in my heart, and it's a memory that I'll have just thinking back all those trips back and forth to South Bend, Indiana. It's 1,000 miles one way. And every time the first thing I would do is go into that basement. Grandpa, I want that gun. I know you do, maybe one day. You know, fortunately I was able to spend that time with him before he passed away. And him and I were able to have that moment together, and he was able to actually give it to me and talk about it.